So you're in the heat of your training. You have back-to-back hard days. Some days you have, just a massive training load. Well, how should you eat to sustain your fuel for those workouts, for those races? Well, I brought in Jenn Giles to the podcast to explain the periodization of nutrition and how that should look during the highest volume of training loads. Enjoy. Rid of carbohydrates because we are having that longer endurance stuff. If we get into now like phase 2 and phase 3 kind of blend together, when you're talking like the initial workouts and then like your high intensity, like phase 3, you don't care about any races or performances during this time. It's just like, how hard can you work out essentially and recover from, obviously. So those two phases, like the ramp up period, phase 2 and then phase 3, is there a difference in nutrition? Like, should we talk about them one at a time or together?
I think the way you put it was great. They kind of blend together. So nutrition reflects both of them. The only difference will be the reflection of the workouts. So then you'll take it more of on a micro, and look at your week and say, okay, well, Monday is my off day. So then nutrition needs to reflect your off day. Tuesday is my high intensity day. So I'm going to bump up my nutrients, say Monday night going into that workout. And then since it's such an intense workout, we're going to recover Tuesday, the rest of the day Tuesday, and then all day Wednesday, because we're still recovering for 24 hours after that. And the nutrient shifts is just going to change on a micro level.
Okay. How does that look then?
So I would say we'll use that as an example, because Tuesdays tend to be track days for a lot of runners, right?
Yeah.
So, and Mondays tend to be off days. So for most people, not everybody. So Mondays, what I would do is keep it more balanced. And then Monday evening, I would up your carbs a slight bit. There's no such thing as carbo loading anymore, but you do want to increase some whole grain carbohydrates or good sources of carbohydrates, maybe potatoes, farro, brown rice. Have that with your grilled chicken or grilled salmon and some extra veggies for micronutrients so that you're having a balance. But I would just increase the portions a tiny bit, because you're going into a hard day the next day and you need that glycogen storage. That's what increasing the carbs does. If you increase your carbs Monday night, when you go to sleep, growth hormone is released and you're going to store all that glycogen. So when you wake up and you hit the track, you're going to have this boost of energy because you just fueled your body really well. You have a great workout. You have to hydrate really well afterwards, because recovery is number one. Eat a solid post-recovery snack right away, just to replenish your muscle stores. So something with carbohydrate and protein is best. Chocolate milk, a Greek yogurt, some granola, something like that. And then still increase your nutrients the rest of the day, because you're continuing to recover that rest of the day.
When you say like increase your nutrients, are you talking like micronutrient, like rich foods, or nutrients just in general, like total calorie intake?
A little bit of both. So you have your macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fat. Those are the big guys. They're macros. And then you have your micronutrients, all your vitamins and minerals. So you need both. They both work together. So the macros are like the team captains, and the micros are all your teammates. But they all work together to be successful. So you got to get extra macros. So boost protein, carbs, and good fats, as long as they're good choices of those three. And then fruits and veggies, because those are all the little worker bees that are going to help the big guys lay down muscle, recover any tissues that have been damaged through that workout, because that's what we do. We damage our muscles when we work out, and we need to replenish them so that they grow and become stronger.
So you mentioned like right after the workout, and this has come up a few times over our podcast, like some carbs, some proteins, within like an hour after the workout. Why is that so important?
Yeah, I love this. And the research is mixed on this. So we used to say, take it in within 15 minutes. And now the research is more like it's a range, more like 20 to 60 minutes. So there's a little bit of confusion with that, but the bottom line is take something in within that first hour, just what you said. And the reason being is when we're working out, we have blood pumping all over our body, right? Lots of blood. Your heart rate's up and your heart is pumping blood everywhere. When you stop working out, your heart rate is still pumping. So if you eat something sooner rather than later, those nutrients are being carried through your bloodstream better and more efficiently to your muscles. The more you wait, your heart rate slows down, there's blood is getting pumped to muscles, but not as quickly. The nutrients won't get delivered as efficiently.
Sure.
So that's the reason behind taking that in a window of time. I usually recommend 20 to 30 minutes. You know, once you start feeling a little bit hungry, afterwards is when you should take it in.
And would that be like, so you have your hard workout, then you have your cool down, and then like it's I mean, your body doesn't work like this, like it's on a time clock or whatever, but the 20 to 30 minutes, like, are you talking after the hard workout, like 20 minutes into the cool down, or like after your cool down, your clock starts?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that question before. That's awesome. But yes, after the entire workout, because after the hard workout, you don't want to take something in and then go cool down. Your tummy will just not at all. So yeah, after your complete workout is done, then you take it in.
Cool. And what would be like the advantages of having, and this is probably going to come across as a stupid question, but like, so your body's primed, you know, to kind of distribute the nutrients where it needs to go afterwards. So what would be like the difference of having something like a healthier choice, even if it's, you know, like peanut butter and some bread, or carbohydrates and protein, versus like, hey, I just worked out, like I just need, you know, simple sugars, carbs, and I'm gonna have a Snickers. Like, what would the Snickers do to the body that like a healthy option wouldn't?
Got it. This is another great question. I love this. So you also have a lot of inflammation after you work out. So, and that's great. Your body gets inflamed, and then your body controls the inflammation. That actually helps build strength and endurance. So inflammation is a good thing, but we need to control it afterwards, or else you can set yourself up for overtraining or injury. So that's important. So what whole foods and do for us is they control inflammation. So having something like peanut butter that has omega-3 fatty acids in it, that's going to control the inflammation. Whole grains, because it's going to control the inflammation. A Snickers bar is loaded with sugar. Sugar is extremely inflammatory. So if you take something with processed sugar right after a workout, now you're exacerbating that inflammation instead of controlling it. So that's a really important point about the importance of eating something that's healthy and nourishing versus something that doesn't have any nutrients in it.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point that I want to just highlight, because sometimes when we there's a stigma, I think, with inflammation. Like, inflammation's bad. It's not bad. We just don't want, like, it's a stimulus. And I think that's kind of more the right way to think about it. Like, you got done training, now there's inflammation that stimulates muscle regrowth and, you know, better growth, or, you know, stronger muscles. But we don't want to add to that with something that's not going to stimulate muscle growth, because then it's just taken away from your body's ability to repair like your muscles. But the other thing we don't want to do is think of inflammation as like the enemy, because then we start getting into like, oh, well, I should take ibuprofen right after I work out because, you know, that reduces inflammation. And I don't know if like you've done studies on like ibuprofen afterwards or anything, but could you just speak to like why inflammation isn't the enemy, and like why ibuprofen isn't the answer to recovery?
Right. Yeah. I mean, basically ibuprofen's like a Band-Aid. So, and it'll control it a little bit quicker. We don't want to control that inflammation too quickly, because we want our body to work the way it needs to work. Think about like when you cut your finger, get a paper cut, right? There's a lot of inflammation in there when you cut it, because it's a trauma to your skin, and that's a good thing. That's part of the healing process. So if you cut your finger and take an Advil, you're decreasing that inflammation right away, and it's not going to heal as properly as if you skip the Advil and maybe had salmon, right? Omega-3s. That's going to control that inflammation slower. And it's also going to provide nutrients to help all those tissues work together. The same thing happens to your muscles. So when we do a super hard run, say your quads are super inflamed, right? Because we just did sprints for 45 minutes. Now, if we took an ibuprofen, those quad muscles, the inflammation would be controlled within like 45 minutes. Really, we really want to take something like a peanut butter sandwich and control it over the course of the next couple hours, 3 hours, when you're metabolizing and absorbing all those nutrients. And then it can happen in a more efficient way. Because now not only does it have the omega-3s, which will decrease inflammation, but it also has other nutrients, B vitamins, vitamin C, protein, fiber, which are giving the whole muscle more nutrients to recover and control inflammation. It just, nutrients give your body what it needs to do its job the best. Medication is there. There's a place for Advil after surgeries and stuff, but not for exercise on a consistent basis, because then you're actually stopping your body's natural processes. And so that's the best way to explain that.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for going down that alley with me. I want to get to the baseline, and then in a real world example of how this increase should kind of look like. Because it's one thing to say like, increase your carbs, your fats prior, or your carbs prior, then, proteins, fats, carbs, everything afterwards. But then we get into the question, okay, how much, so providing it's just an example of, right around 45 minutes of hard exertion and RPE scale of 8 or 9, typical workout in the afternoon. What should if kind of your baseline intake of what you typically do, how much should you increase the night prior and then leading into that morning and then afterwards?
Okay. It'll be a little bit different for each athlete, just depending on what their metabolism looks like, what their body weight looks like, and what their goals are. But in general, I always recommend 1 to 2 servings extra the night before a really hard workout. Okay. Which just means if you're going to have chicken, vegetables, and a baked potato, I would say have 2 chicken breasts and have maybe 1.5 baked potatoes, or even 2 baked potatoes if that's not too much food for your stomach, and an extra portion of vegetables, because then it's a bigger meal, yes, as long as you can stomach it. And the athletes that can't stomach that much food, that, don't like to eat 2 dinners, kind of, what I would say is have 2 dinners. So just break it up. So half maybe at 6 o'clock and another half at 9 o'clock, or a couple hours apart, however you want to time it, because that'll also help the glycogen storage. Sure. Another way of doing it is spreading the food out throughout the whole day. So if Monday is your rest day, then just boosting 1 serving at every meal, breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, so that your overall intake throughout the whole day is higher. That will also increase the glycogen storage. But 1 to 2 servings of every vegetables, carbs, protein, or carbs, protein, fat, rather. Sorry. I'm a big vegetable person. Yeah. Will be enough. You don't have to sit there and eat 5 plates of pasta the night before, I think, which is kind of an old school carb loading thought, right? We don't have to do that. In fact, that can actually slow you down instead of speed you up, and also create a little bit of inflammation, speaking of inflammation. But if we're just boosting 1 to 2 servings of every food group or macronutrient, that's plenty enough to increase glycogen storage overnight.
Sure. You said it could increase inflammation? Is that if you kind of get to that point where you're just stuffed beyond, stuffed, and all you want to do is lay down on the couch and take a nap? Is that at the point where just eating too much causes inflammation, or am I missing on that?
What I meant to say was eating too much refined carbohydrates. So if you eat too much just pasta without the protein, without the fat, without the veggies, that would cause inflammation just because it's too many carbohydrates without a balance of other things.
Got it. So it's not the quantity, it's the quality.
The quality, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So then leading into the next morning, right before the workout, and then after the workout, what should we be adjusting?
Yeah, so timing here is key. So if you're doing afternoon workouts, say we're working out at 3, then breakfast. So right when you wake up in the morning, you have to top off that glycogen, because your blood sugars have dipped a little bit overnight because we didn't eat. So we want to top it off. So oatmeal, some chopped nuts, diced banana, something like that has complex carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm.
omega-3 fats, and some protein. And then I would time it up to when you want to work out, almost work backwards. So if you're going to run at 3, your last meal probably wants to be between 12:30 and 1. You want to give yourself a nice, at least 2 hours to digest that. Some people need more, some people need less. That may be a little bit individualized.
Yeah.
But as long as that food is absorbed and digested before you hit the track. And then I would back that up a little bit more. So 12:31, I would have a mid-morning snack, say at 10 o'clock. So you're feeding your body enough times throughout the day, and then you'll be good to go.
Got it. Okay. And then after the workout, we have, like our chocolate milk or, protein bar, or however you want to kind of feel that after within that 60-minute window. Is it as simple as, that 1 to 2 extra servings then that night for the evening meal?
Yeah. And hopefully you'll be hungry. See, this is the beauty of your body too, is when your body needs nutrients, it sends your body a hunger signal. So it's really important to be aware of that and in tune with how hungry you are after workouts. And yes, and not let you go overboard. So sometimes we get starving and then just grab that half-gallon of ice cream and start eating it after a hard workout. But if you have that recovery snack right after, so we're replenishing a little bit, and then maybe 2 hours afterwards, have a sandwich, let's say half a sandwich while you're doing an afternoon workout. So 3 o'clock, you'd be ready for dinner at that point. So then you can actually go and have a full dinner. As long as it's balanced with all your nutrients, you're feeding your body what it needs, you're quenching the hunger, you're helping recovery, and then you can even have a second healthy snack afterwards. So say a Greek yogurt with berries, so that you're continuing to recover, because you still continue to recover for 24 hours after a hard workout.
Mm-hmm. So then do you just continue like the next day, like a little extra breakfast than you normally have, and then like back down to what you would, kind of your baseline then?
Yeah. And then you just plan it based on what your next workout is. So do you have like a hill repeat workout the next day? You may have to do the same kind of pattern. It gets a little complicated because as athletes, we're always either recovering from a workout or preparing for a workout. Middle place where you're always thinking about yesterday and the next day. And so you may just have to go back on that cycle of increasing, decreasing. Every single thing you put in your mouth needs to reflect your workouts, your training schedule.
So I'm curious if you see this trend or if it's just something that's crazy for me. I do long runs or long workouts, but it more not so like long workouts, but like long runs. So like 2 hours or, at least an hour and a half to 2 hours, whether I do them like just easy or hard, it usually takes me like the next day, and then I'm just like ravaging food. But that day, I don't know if it's like my stomach is just kind of worked up or what have you, but I'm usually not as hungry that day. If I like, should I force myself to have that extra food, or is that just a signal my body is telling me, hey, now I'm like ready to intake the nutrients?
Yeah, that's another great question. So exercise actually is an appetite suppressant.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very common not to be hungry after workouts. And that's where we get into trouble because we're not taking in the fuel that we need to recover from. So while I hate to say force feed, because I'm a big proponent of just listening to your body, it's hunger cues, I would just eat smaller, more frequent meals.
Sure.
So that you can handle a little bit. You can handle a chocolate milk or a peanut butter sandwich, and you don't need to have a big meal. But if you have smaller little meals, say every 2 hours for the rest of the day, even because you're not starving, you just need a little bit, then wait until your hunger increases, maybe the next morning, to really have that bigger solid meal. You have to individualize it, because if I asked you to have a big meal and you're not hungry, you're going to feel awful and you're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
Not going to help anybody, and especially not your performance. So just figure out what's going on with your own body and figure out what works the best.
Yeah. Well, a disclaimer here. I tended to kind of just listen to my body, but then I got way too skinny.
Interesting.
And like I couldn't eat enough to keep on the weight that I needed because I literally just got bored of eating.
Yeah.
And I think that like unless if you're an athlete and training at, you know, a certain level, like the term bored of eating, like, is you've never heard of, but then like if you can relate to it, you can relate, but if you can't, you're probably like, well, I'm stupid over here. But
well, you know what I mean? It's just like I said, it suppresses our appetite. So sometimes you really don't. I mean, I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I go out for a long run, I come back and I'm like, I'm not hungry. I just know I need something. And that's, you know, you can find different things that you like that will satisfy your recovery and your need not to take in a lot of food. And in that case, maybe a more dense food would be better for you. Like a handful of nuts would be great because it's loaded with nutrients and calories, but you only need a little bit and
Great
not
point.
a whole lot.
Yeah. Is there any way, and I don't know if this has been studied or just kind of came to my mind, like, is there a way to increase your appetite, like, afterwards? Is like anything you can do to kind of like, hey, I want to eat, like, how do I do the first step?
Oh, yeah. Not that I know of, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure there's medications, but we don't want to go down that road. No, I think the best way to increase your appetite is to kind of do what I just said. If you eat little amounts of foods every 2 hours, your body will get used to taking in food 2 hours. And the science behind that is then if you don't, you will actually increase your hunger levels. So you're teaching your body to be hungry just by timing what you're doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. All right. So anything else on phase 3 that we should be looking at as far as nutrition before we get into like the championship or taper phase?
Right. No, I think if you repeat the patterns that we just talked about and just make sure that you're increasing your intake, nutritional intake, as your training is increasing, then you'll notice a difference. And that's the biggest thing is you will feel better.
If you found this helpful, share it with a teammate or a friend. Help somebody else get better from this content if you enjoyed it. Otherwise, you can hit subscribe, never miss another episode video that we put out here. Otherwise, go to our podcast and you can find the full-length audio versions of all of my interviews on the Science of Sports Recovery podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, go check it out.